G'day, it's AJ, and welcome to my annual gratitude letter for 2026. Wow, blink, and it's December 31 already, and another year has gone past. 2025 was certainly a really big year. In the Chinese calendar, it was the year of the snake, the year of shedding and of leaving behind. And certainly it did feel like a year of some loss, some sorrow, and a lot of challenges. It was quite frankly one of the hardest years that I've faced in probably over a decade. But this is a new year, and there's something exciting about entering a new year. And this is the 22nd year that I've actually penned a letter to my future self, a gratitude letter, which is really essentially a vision for what I hope to grow into over the coming 12 months. I'm reminded a lot that in Western world, we don't always do rituals and endings very well. So this is one ritual that I like to upkeep, and that really helps me feel like it sets me up for a great year ahead. So before I jump into it, special thank you to everyone who had part of my year in 2025. Even though it was challenging, there was certainly lots of joyful moments, lots of connection with lots of amazing humans. It was the year that I lost my parent, my father, my Papa Bear. And so now it is a little strange that I've lost both my mum and my dad. And it can be a little bit discombobulating, like you've kind of lost that tether. So I'm really grateful for the earth and the planet and my partner, Mickey, for being that tether and that grounding for me as we move forward into this new year. So let's begin. 2026, my gratitude letter to myself of everything that I hope to grow into. And I write these letters as if it's already December 31st of the coming year. So imagine it's already December 31, 2026, and I'm reflecting back on the year. So as I write this, I have ordered a new car, a brand new electric car, and not because I'm trying to prove something, but because it reflects of where I've stepped into this year. And I have enjoyed a year of driving pleasure with something that's completely different to what I've had in the past. 2026 has been an undeniably different year. We were definitely no longer living in the old world. And the shifts moved from just conceptual and things that we might have talked about and thought about to things that were actually my daily reality, and for the clients, the people that I love, and those that I serve. It was truly a year of embodiment, of integration, and of choosing presence over pressure. And as the year evolved, what kind of came out for me was three truths. And they were really simple truths, but life altering at the same time. Number one, wealth is health. Number two, wealth is an investment. And number three, joy is non-negotiable. So the year felt like I was in a new beginning, and yet a kind of remembering, returning to the 0 point, that point of surrender where you need courage to step forward, but you also have to let go of the reins and surrender a bit, let go. And so the 0 point is certainly not empty. In fact, it's saturated with potential. And it felt like the whole year of 2026 began this kind of place to sit in that surrender. So let's go through the three truths that came out throughout this year, 2026. Number one was that health is wealth. And 2026 truly began a year that I stopped negotiating with my body. And I always thought I was doing the right things, yet I had noticed some decline in strength, some decline in my well-being, and also a decline in stress. And of course, losing loved ones, stress, grief, responsibility, being menopausal, and really held it together for a number of years. And so right at the end of 2025, I'd had a health scare, and really Western medicine had wanted to do intervention removal procedures. And my intuition kept saying to pause and reflect. And so I chose to trust that and to surrender into that and remember that with the right conditions, the body is always a self-healing mechanism. And so I committed to understanding my biology better. I worked with a woman, Sam, thank you, Sam, who helped me understand my hormones and adrenals and stress responses much better than I had ever done in the past. And also to collect data. And, you know, they say the data never lies. The data held the truth. And with guidance, patience, and care, my energy returned, and not just to fine, but, you know, to awesome. And so my reflection and realization through this year has been that if any goal requires me to abandon my body or my values or my peace, then it's not aligned and it's not a yes. So I continued my practices of grounding daily, of walking in the bush. I rested when I needed to, and I stopped forcing everything and started to learn to let it land. Was that easy? No. Does it fit my personality? No. And so it did require, you know, that coming back to center, that coming back to that surrender. And what I found is my nervous system started to soften, my presence was strengthened, and it really helped my leadership deepen as well. And so health became my first responsibility for 2026, because without it, everything else is just fiction. And I'm so grateful that I took time to do that. Number two, as I said, wealth is an investment. And 2026 was certainly a year where direction replaced uncertainty and some of the challenges that I'd experienced. I'd had some real challenges in 2025 and did some real consolidation of my finances and my investments, and really looked at, where do I want to take the business moving forward? Where do I want my investments to go? How do I want to be in that sphere of wealth? And I really stopped playing small to keep others comfortable. I stopped confusing things and let go of some of the old patterns and obligations, and also a lot of scarcity stories that had really been built since my childhood with my family. And so I rebuilt from a place of integrity and self-trust, and knowing that wealth is an ecosystem, not just a number. And so I invested in infrastructure that freed my energy, support that honored my genius. You know, Michael stepped into the business in this year, and I called on the rest of the team for more support. We also looked at bringing in other consultants to help with pieces of work and business and collaborations, so that we kind of supported each other's genius, and work created depth and not just noise. And so having more support in the business really changed lots this year. It meant that the back end got held much tighter, that the systems and things started to get brought up to scratch and really looked at and questioned, and why do we do things a certain way? And so for me, I had to just surrender to that and let go, and also allow me to do more of what I love. And so because of that, things got so much smoother. And so we launched the new business and company name. By the time this will be published, it'll have happened or not yet happened, but it's called Beside Leaders Global. And Beside Leaders is all about walking beside leaders, whether that's a CEO in a company, a people and culture, a HR leader, whether that's the board of a company, or just walking alongside the whole culture. And it's really about building this consulting practice where we work with, not over or above people, but in this side-by-side, ethical, humane, and regenerative way. And so I spent much less time administering the business and much more time on creating and connecting and being of service, doing what I love. I also really invested in developing more of my speaking business side, and my keynotes evolved. I undertook training in that. And so my keynotes became more immersive and experiential and memorable. And whilst I didn't get louder or different, I guess I was just truer to what my work and my life shows me. And so my work started to touch many others, and I got more and more invitations to speak at conferences and in-house events, and be a speaker on stage that could lead and share with others in a way that they could then have transformations, not through force, but that coherence again. And so quietly and steadily, the wealth compounded again, right? Because that's how it works. And so it started to grow and everything felt more expansive and much more possibilities. And it meant that I could invest in things that I truly believed in and that could really make a difference in the world. And so the third and final kind of thing that popped up throughout 2026 was to invest in more joy. And I'd always talked about it, but I guess before, joy had been a bit of a reward at the end of things. And in this year, joy became a practice. So I celebrated much more. We gathered much more with friends and colleagues. We laughed more. We had less screen time, more listening to audiobooks, more fireside chats, more long dinner table talks, more walks, more attending concerts and live events and things like that. And so the land out here, the Valley of Joy, also mirrored that shift. I started to see regeneration in a different way on the land. Bracken ferns were the first things that I noticed really started to return and that hadn't been here before or had been here before my time. And so balance was starting to get restored. Rainforest was starting to be regenerated. And the plants that I planted, the trees that I planted were all around bird attracting. And so we started to see new species coming into this beautiful sanctuary. And the joy of just sitting on the veranda each afternoon and watching little red hens and honey eaters and all the native birds coming around was just a joy. I also restored the labyrinth and looked at ways at creating a pathway where people could actually come and walk the labyrinth. It's a left-right brain one. And I'd done it before, but not in this new sustainable way. And I'd actually embedded gemstones and crystals and little feathers and gifts and things that people had given me as well into it. So the energy of the labyrinth got stronger and stronger and stronger. Orange was the color of the year. It kind of emerged in my clothing, in my speaking. Oh, I've got a little bit here, in my brand, in Beside Leaders Global's brand. And really, orange is the color of change. It's color of creation and life force. And so it started to show up more and more. And I was led by what that was and what it represents in the chakras around that real motivation and impetus. So I deepened my understanding of human design and of the gene keys and really started to understand how my work style works and how I can support and work with others. And really that deepened my awareness and understanding of being a leader in the world and not being a leader that's ahead trying to drag people along, but instead that walking beside sense where I'm there to hold and support others. Leadership is absolutely the center of my universe. And so I looked at ways to write books, create resources, and launched a new podcast all around walking beside leaders and sharing the stories of other people and helping people understand the realities of leadership can be lonely and what are some of the ways that we can navigate that journey, because really any outward change we see has come from an inward journey inside. And so learning really happens at that edge. And what I also learned was peace is something worth protecting. And so I started to look at ways to really honor and hold some boundaries around those. And after the year last year of my father passing, and he kept saying to us, have fun and enjoy your life, I started thinking about the question. He was 85 when he passed. So I started to think about what would my 85-year-old self wish I'd done. And what came to me was really just the simple things: stress less, care for my body, enjoy my life, have more fun. And so 2026 was a year where I really dove into that. And so finally, I'm grateful that I coached and walked beside hundreds of leaders in this year. I'm up over 25,000 leaders now that I've walked with. And what changed in their lives wasn't necessarily dramatic. It was steadiness. So they all found they had calmer responses and clearer thinking, less reactivity, more trust in themselves. And that rippled into deeper sleep, better well-being and habits and ways of being in the world. And so sometimes the smallest little shifts can actually move mountains. And so at the end of this year, it felt like I had become more true. I had more peace and clarity, more abundance and joy, and more friendship and fun and life in life. It was deeper, not faster than other years, even though it did feel like quite a fast year. And everything lasted longer. So I'm really grateful to have given myself the space to reflect, the time to do that. And I hope that it inspires you to think about your own predictions for 2026. You know, there's lots of people out there who do astrology and astronomy and all of those things and predict their year. But we are also ultimate manifestors, and what we think about, we bring about. So maybe this could be a little inspirational spark for you to think about, what do I want to create this year? And maybe lean into articulating that in as much detail as seems right for you. Have a beautiful, blessed year. Much love.